So now that we've talked about a person who's engaging his malchus, his sphere of influence, in a way of chaburas, in a way of Mordechai, Mardrar. So the Rebbe asked two simple questions. Practically, how does this work? Number one, we don't necessarily know what every person needs, which is incredibly humbling from the standpoint of a mashpia. Sometimes you don't know what the person needs. How do we know what they need to hear in this moment? It takes tremendous siyata d'shmaya. We can't just have prepackaged messages for every person, because sometimes one person needs to hear one message, another person needs to hear another kind of message. And so that's number one, ein yadeh ma shetzarech lahem. And then v'gam einam etzle leichiach, says the Rebbe, sometimes they're not there. You're not next to those people. It's possible maybe to say that on one level, these two elements reflect Malchus de Iskalia and Malchus de Iskasia. Right? The Malchus de Iskalia is, you know who these people are, but you just don't know what they need. And then the Malchus de Iskasia is you don't even know how to reach these people. Right? As to how is that supposed to happen? How is that supposed to work? So the Rebbe says, for this we need das. For this we need das. And the same arichas yamim that we mentioned earlier, which is going to save a person and allow a person to avoid the experience of rabbanos mikaberes es ba'aleh, or va'atas nafshecha, so to speak, loy hitzalta, for a person to be able to overcome using malchus in a way of shibud, not in a way of chayrus, in a way of galus, not in a way of geula, for a person's own selfish needs and motivations. That arichas yamim that was required stam to enable a person to use malchus properly is now necessary here for the purpose of using the general context of malchus being used appropriately now in terms of the actual practical exercise of that utilization of malchus. Arichas yamim also is needed, not just generally speaking, but arichas yamim is necessary for the actual engagement of that malchus in a very pragmatic, practical way. So how do we access this arichas yamim? Says the Rebbe, we access the arichas yamim al yidei eisek haTorah, through learning Torah in the proper way, in the way that Torah was meant to be learned, in the way the Chazal tell us, zacha nasa le'sam chaim. Based on the pasuk, v'samtem es devarei eila, Chazal darshan, the sin can be exchanged for the letter samach, has the same sound. And so they learned v'samtam is that the Torah could be a sam. It can either be an elixir of life, a sam chaim, or chas v'shalom, it could be a sam maves. It can mamash be a poison, Rahman al-Islam. And so if a person's engaged in Torah in the way of sam chaim, so mamela they're accessing through the asek and the engagement with limud haTorah, they're accessing the eitz chaim hi lama chazikim ba. They're accessing the va'atem hadveikim Hashem lekechem chaim kulchem hayom. So the pasuk over there literally is telling us what's chaim. How does a person access chaim? And the answer is dveikus. Va'atem hadveikim b'Hashem lekechem chaim kulchem hayom. Dveikus is the ultimate goal. Limud haTorah is maybe the primary means. Everything is relative per person and per the circumstances. Rav Shimshon Pincus writes very clearly in Akdama to Sha'ar Mitfila. But ultimately, in a certain sense, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam literally means that Limud HaTorah is the greatest dveikus that we could have. But it has to be done in the proper way, with the proper intention, in the proper context. And the Baal HaTanya writes maybe more clearly than anybody in the 4th parak and the 5th parak later on about the way in which Limud HaTorah is the greatest dveikus that could ever be. That Hashem's mind, kiviyachol, which is indistinguishable from himself, kiviyachol, hu hayodea, hu hayodia, hu hayadua, he is the das that's expressed in the Torah, his will. And when we use our das, or capacity for cognitive thought, to grasp HaKadosh Baruch Hu's das, the Baal Tanya says that's a yichud that is so uchad, so absolutely unified, b'chol tzad upina, in every way, with the seichel of the Torah grasping our seichel and our seichel grasping it, an aspect of the arein that's noiseas, noisav, that they're both carrying each other, they're both grasping each other, the arein, of course, being the symbol of Torah. But the Baal Tanya says there's no yichud that is even comparable in the physical world. There's no yichud that's similar to that. It's so absolutely one. Our minds grasping the Torah and thereby grasping HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the way that the Rebbe writes this is that we can approach Torah as being the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Torah isn't abstracted as a body of intellectual wisdom or knowledge. The Torah is a way of coming into contact with the divine, with the Ein Sof. The Torah is the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Mamela, the pasuk that speaks about the Melech who needs to be carrying a Sefer Torah with him all times, v'haisa imai, and it's with the Melech. V'karabai kol yemei chayav, says the Rebbe. V'karabai doesn't mean, as we ordinarily literally translate, v'karabai, that he should read the Torah kol yemei chayav. It's much deeper. V'karabai, says the Rebbe, is referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That in being connected to the Torah, v'haisa imai, being connected to the Torah, means v'kara bai, to be calling Hashem's name, to be calling out to Him. That limud Torah has to be with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as the Baal Shem HaKadosh famously says, based on the Gemara, that ein a person who learns the Torah 100 times, to a person who learns the Torah that he's learning 100 times and one. Says the Rebbe, 100 times and one is 100 times and the one, and the echad yachid umiyuchad. Ein odaima can't compare a person who learns the Torah that he's learning stam 100 times to the person who learns that same Torah 100 times, but it's with the echad yachid umiyuchad. 100 and one times and one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. With Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem echad. So when we engage in limud Torah on this level, where we're literally connecting to Hashem through the Torah that we're learning, Memela says at the end of the pasuk, the Torah becomes a Saim Chaim, Eitz Chaim Hilama Chazikim Ba. Memela, we're able to draw from there, Laman Yarech Yamim, Arichas Yamim, Al Mamlachtoi, down into our malchus. And that gives us the capacity to be able to know what to say to people and to be able to reach even those who we have no idea how somehow we're reaching them. But if we trigger this aspect of the Torah, which is bound up with HaKadosh Baruch who is bound up with Araisa v'Kutchabrichu v'Yisrael Chadhu, then somehow we're able to somehow impact the whole network of Nishmas Yisrael. Okay, Bezos Hashem, looking forward to continuing our learning together. And thank you so much for listening. Ashreinu, Ashreinu, Ashreinu. What is a chus to be Isaac in the Torah of the Tzaddik? All the best. Have a great day.